Hi photo students, I want to introduce our Long 2 assignment to you. This assignment is called Noun, as defined as a word other than a pronoun used to identify any class of people, places, or things. Okay, people, places, or things. So in this long assignment, we're again going to be breaking this up into parts. We've got 2 parts for this assignment. Do me a favor and just double check and make sure that the dates are the same in Google Classroom, because I have to use these presentations for multiple sections. So in this demo video or in this intro video to the assignment, our part 1 is due week 4, day 3, and part 2, week 5, day 3, but sometimes depending on the section I change those weeks and those due dates. So just be conscientious. The actual correct date will be listed in the assignment in your Google Classroom. So it's in 2 parts. Again, the first part, I just am setting that as a deadline only. So their image is shot and ready to edit, but you're not actually turning anything in for that assignment. You're just being prepared. So when I give you part 2 of that assignment, you're ready to work on editing those images and finalizing them to post to your assignment page in WordPress. For this assignment, you're going to make what are called triptychs. You're going to make 3 separate triptychs. So there's going to be a 9 total images. Triptychs are a series of 3 images. So we've got 3 of those series, so 3, 3, and 3. We're continuing our technical work while transitioning to concentrating on concepts for this assignment, so please follow the instructions closely. You'll create, again, 3 separate triptychs. This is a series of 3 images. In addition, the last slides have a set of tutorials that will explain the edits that I want you to make to your final images. All right? So you're going to be working on 3 different series. Each series is going to have a different concentration. So the first series you're going to be concentrating on is a formal series where you're going to depict a person, a place, and a thing. And I don't care which order those are in. So you'll notice here when I go to the next one, I have thing, person, place, or place, thing, person. I'm not really concerned with the order in which person, place, and thing are represented, but you're going to have 3 separate images, one that depicts person, one that depicts place, and one that depicts thing. For the first series, you're going to be addressing formal connections between the 3 images. In the second one, you're going to create a narrative connection between the 3 images, and then the third one, you're going to create a conceptual series. And each one of these I'm going to go over more in depth here in a second. So let's start with our formal. Again, you're going to photograph a person, place, and thing in any order, and you're going to make formal connections between those 3 images. So for example, you might create a type of composition that is similar with all 3 images. You might have a color that is unique that carries through each one of those images that connects the 3. I've had students in the past create a horizon line and have that carry throughout each of the 3 images. You might have a similar shape that carries throughout the 3 images. So formal in art terminology, we mean the things that are the things that make up the image itself visually. Okay, so in this sense, the formal properties, I've just given you a handful of examples. I'm going to give you an example that isn't a triptych necessarily. It's a triptych of paintings, but it's not depicting person, place, or thing, but I think it gives us a good example of a formal connection that connects 3 different objects that are part of the same artwork. So this is a triptych by Mark Rothko, who's a painter. Was considered an abstract expressionist painter, but I think he would kind of push back against that. These are called the Central Triptych in the Rothko Chapel in 1966. They were completed. What you're looking at here is you have 3 different paintings, right? So two large square panels centered by a series of three horizontal panels combined. So the triptych here, say for instance, formally that connects the three would be the color, right? The color connects the three. The symmetry connects the three images together, or three paintings. The dimensions, the scale, connect the three images. In this case, too, the architecture and all those other things are formal properties that frame the three and make them a triptych, connect them, right? So that would be formal. That's your formal series. Moving on to your narrative, this is just person, place, or thing. This is a little bit more simple in terms of just creating a narrative, a story. Most traditionally, you have a narrative that would be a beginning, middle, and end. Obviously, you can experiment with that if you'd like. But again, person, place, and thing all need to be represented. And the thread or the tether that connects all three of those images has to be a story of some sort. And here is another example. Again, it's a triptych of images, but they're not person, place, or thing. But I think it does depict a kind of progression that creates a narrative. This is by a photographer named Dwayne Michaels. It's called Portrait of Andy Warhol from 1973. And what you see here is Andy Warhol kind of a stone-faced gesture, an emotional gesture, and then a swinging of the head, a shaking of the head, as in saying no to what he's seeing, I think. And so you have this beginning, middle, and end, which I think create a story of going through something, right? A witnessing of something or an experience of something. Now the third one's going to be the hardest, and so I really want you to just be open and experiment with this one as much as possible. Again, person, place, or thing, but this one I want you to make a conceptual connection between the three images. The idea that's represented by the images resides more dominantly outside of what's actually depicted. So this third series will be the most difficult, like I said. Please look at the final example 2. I'm giving you 2 examples of this just to get your head wrapped into what conceptual means. The photographer, or the artist Ai Weiwei, created a triptych of 3 images here of himself dropping a vase. Now, the thing that I want you to pay attention to, and I know that the title is listed here, but I want you to imagine looking at these 3 images and understanding that the artist is dropping this vase, or person being photographed is dropping this vase. What's important is how significant the image changes in terms of its meaning when you know some things that are external. In this case, knowing that the artist is dropping a Han Dynasty urn changes the significance of the urn itself and what it means and what it represents, but more importantly, what it means to actually drop that urn and break it, and what conceptually that might be saying. What is the artist trying to speak to when doing that and creating that gesture? All right, that's conceptual. So that idea becomes becomes strengthened, and the work gets enhanced conceptually by this title outside of the image itself. So one other example that I think is really helpful in order to understand what I mean by conceptual. This is an artwork by the artist, photographer Jason Lazarus. Jason Lazarus used to live in Chicago, but doesn't any longer. I think he got a teaching job in Florida. But he's a really great conceptual artist, conceptual photographer. And what you're looking at is a still image from a video that he created, where you would walk into a room and you'd see this video of a tree blowing in the wind, and you would hear some kind of external noises like church bells ringing and stuff like that. But when you're just observing the actual imagery itself, it just appears to be a tree, the top of a tree. But the title of the artwork is "The Top of the Tree Gazed Upon by Anne Frank While in Hiding in Amsterdam," and the artwork was created in 2008. And so what I want you to notice, and I want you to pay attention to, is how the primary meaning of this tree, this image, and this still image changes significantly when you understand what tree you're looking at and from what vantage point. And so you start to reflect and start to think about the Holocaust or World War II or ... right? You start to think of all those other things that weren't present initially when just looking at the tree without the knowledge of the title. All right, so that's just a strategy. It's one strategy of thinking about things conceptually, and I think you should experiment with this and think about it with this final triptych and do your best. And I'm happy to field questions. Feel free to reach out to me. Now, on a technical level, I want you to do a certain set of edits to each one of these images. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to begin white balancing your images. I go over what white balancing is in a separate tutorial, but these are videos that are going to walk through and give you demos on how to do that. I gave you a fundamental, there's a full YouTube playlist of a variety of different approaches and techniques for doing this in Photoshop. I give you my favorite currently, and then a more advanced one that you might explore now or later in the semester. The second thing I want you to do to each image, the second edit, is I want you to start to create what are called local edits. Initially, we have been working on doing edits that are global. So if you change the white balance for the entire image, that's a global edit. But we're going to move into doing more specific and local edits to certain areas of an image. And I want you to make a local edit to at least 3 of the images that you use for all of the 9 triptychs. I want you to explore using the Content Aware tool, and here's a tutorial on that. The Patch tool, which is a tutorial is listed here, and then the healing tools, the spot and brush tool, and this is my current favorite. And again, you can go to a full list of these different tools through YouTube playlists that I've created. Then the very final thing I'd like you to explore, at least on one of the images, is the use of the clone stamp tool. This is, I think, a little bit more advanced, but I think it's an important tool that you should know at least exist early on. Okay. Now, again, coming back to questions that I get from students often really relate to this kind of formatting. So remember that for each triptych, which is a set of 3 images, you're making connections between each one of those triptychs. So in this one, you're concentrating on a formal series, a connection between a person, a place, and a thing. The second one is a narrative series, thing, person, and place. And the third one is a conceptual series called connecting place, thing, and person. Again, I just put those in random order. They can be in any order you want. If you have any questions about this assignment, please don't hesitate to reach out. Again, this is a 2-part assignment, and I want you to succeed. So if you've got specifics, let's set up a time to meet if we need to, and we'll work on anything you've got to explore. All right. Good luck.